Incidences of cancer are on the rise in this country. As per a recent report from the National Cancer Registry Program, there are more than 4.5 million cancer patients pan-India. And in countless scenarios, when patients finally reach out to an oncologist, the disease has often progressed, and the prognosis, of course, continues to deteriorate. So to commemorate World Cancer Day, observed annually on February 4th, we're joined in studio by a distinguished panel of domain experts to shed more light on cancer screening, diagnosis, prevention and treatment protocols, because we owe it to ourselves and to our loved ones to be aware. With that, welcome to our special feature, I.O., a public awareness initiative by MSD Pharmaceuticals. Allow me to introduce our guests. We have with us Dr. Boman Dhabhar, Director Oncology, Fortis Hospital, Mulund. Dr. Sewanti Limaye, Director, Medical and Precision Oncology, Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital. And Dr. Vashishth Maniar, Co-founder and Director, MOC Cancer Care and Research Center. To the distinguished panel, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in studio. And for the benefit of our viewers, Dr. Boman, my first question comes to you. The World Health Organization indicates that cancer is the second leading cause of death globally, with over 10 million patients losing their lives to the disease annually. So my question to you is, beyond the basics, what more can the layman do to lower their risk?
Just to recapitulate the basics: stop tobacco,
Sure.
avoid alcohol, maintain a good body weight, healthy exercises if you are allowed to do, healthy diet. Those are all the basics. But beyond basics, if you ask me, screening has changed the outcome of many diseases. Roughly, more than the therapeutic advances that have occurred, if you take part in screening, and screening especially in 4 cancers where they have changed the outcome of the whole disease, is breast, prostate, colorectal cancers and lung cancers.
Sure.
More than the therapeutic advances, you can save lives by taking part in screening programs.
Right.
There are a few more things I would suggest is take part in vaccinations. There is an HPV vaccine for cervical cancer, hepatitis B vaccine to avoid liver cancers. Of course, hepatitis B has now become a very routine thing, but for elderly people who are not in part of the screening programs or not a part of the vaccination programs, those should undergo hepatitis B vaccination.
Well, thank you, Dr. Boman, for setting that context. I want to build on some of your observations. Coming to you now, Dr. Sewanti. When we talk about leading symptoms, what are they, and what are some of the telltale signs that perhaps require immediate medical attention in your view?
So, starting from the upper part of your body, if someone is having an ulcer in their mouth, or a lump in their neck, or a lump in their breast, or for that matter, any kind of abdominal symptoms that have persisted beyond a couple of weeks. I even say any symptom that has been persistent for over a couple of weeks, like if someone has had chronic cough for over a 2-week period, 4-week period, they need to be examined. And of course, lower abdomen for a woman, abdominal pain, discomfort, change in bowel habits for anyone, male or female, bleeding, especially in a female, vaginal bleeding or bleeding in the urine, lump anywhere in the groin, in the abdomen, belly, neck, breast, anywhere. So essentially the bottom line is any symptom that has been there for over 2 weeks that you find abnormal, seek medical attention. And if you feel that your doctor is too casual about it and you still feel strongly that this is not something very usual, you still need to escalate. I think today the onus in India, unfortunately, is on the patient to seek the right kind of medical help, and that goes a long way in early detection of cancer.
Well, building on that, I'll come to you. If we are to look at the disease through the lens of the patient and through the lens of nature versus nurture for a moment, Dr. Vashishth, to what extent is cancer simply a disease which patients are genetically predisposed to?
So Pooja, I think it's no more nature versus nurture. I think it's nature and nurture now. Rationale being that when we talk about nature, we talk about the genes that we are endowed with,
Sure.
a genetic structure that you have been inherited with and hence you can't change.
Right.
They are largely responsible for about 10% of all cancers. But it's more nurture, meaning what you are exposed to. What are these genes exposed to in terms of the stressors of life, be it environmental, be it what you eat, what you breathe. Some of these are modifiable in terms of what you eat, the amount of exercise, as Dr. Boman mentioned, that you need to put in.
Right.
Some of these are unavoidable in terms of the epigenetic modification, which is the risk which is endowed, which is beyond your control.
Sure.
So nurture is responsible for about 50% of most cancers. By nurture, we mean the exposure that we get as a part of being living in the society. Risk of alcohol, smoking, all of these eventually adds to 50% of your risk of cancer. And genetically endowed cancers, something that you cannot control, is about 5 to 10% of all cancers.
Well, Dr. Sewanti, if I could come back to you, because your panelists have both talked lifestyle a moment ago. So to what extent does age or gender, for that matter, play a role in increasing your risk of suffering from the disease?
This is a great question. Cancer is a disease of aging. And so as we age, the chances of our cells running out of control, running amok, are much higher. So when we look at the world data, the median age of presenting with any type of cancer is between 55 and 65. India is a young nation, and we see a higher predilection of cancers presenting at younger than this median age. So we have to be careful even earlier, sooner
Sure.
than what the world is at. The screening in general starts above 50. For us in India, there are areas and families where the screening should start much sooner. So that's one thing. Regarding the gender, so there are some cancers that are much more predominantly seen in women.
Such as?
So, breast cancer, of course, is going to be all women's malignancies are going to be seen in women. There is a type of lung cancer that is increasingly being seen at a higher rate in women, like non-smokers' lung cancer is growingly seen more in women. So many cancers are gender predisposed, and we need to be cognizant of the fact when a male comes in with a certain type of symptom,
Sure.
where the male predominant cancer may be seen more than the regular gender neutral cancer.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And Dr. Boman, you've brought up screening. Your fellow panelists have also brought up screening, but the sad reality is that sometimes the sheer fear of treatment or the social stigma perhaps that comes with being associated as a cancer patient is what keeps people from seeking out support from their peers, their family members, and even medical professionals, right? So what's the solution? Because the problem is certainly complex.
What is most important is educating the patient.
Sure.
It should be the education of the masses. That yes, cancer is treatable. There is no stigma. It is not a contagious disease that you should be worried about, and it is treatable. So there are few headlines which should be given to the masses that the cancer is treatable now, and it is not a social stigma no longer. I had patients who would come and tell me that, even educated patients would tell me that we are sharing the same toilet. There is nothing to do with the toilet.
Right.
So it's not contagious at all.
Right.
So those are some things which have to go to the masses.
Sure.
And I'm sure meetings like this only will make the patient aware that these are not, there is no social stigma. It's like any other disease, like how diabetes is there, or how stroke is there, or any other disease you take it. So it has to be, this message has to go to the masses. Then they'll come to you in the early stage.
Well, a two-part question then to my other two panelists, and I'll start with you, Dr. Sewanti. What are perhaps some of the cancers that can be successfully treated if detected early, And then as a follow-up, Dr. Vashishth, what are perhaps some of the types of cancers that show no discernible symptoms at all? I think we owe it to ourselves to inform ourselves around both scenarios.
Most of the cancers, if detected early, can be treated and cured. I mean, if you start from the top portion of the body, oral cavity, so any ulcer, any lump needs attention. And if examined and found to have an ulcer, patient should undergo a biopsy, abnormal looking ulcer, something that has been there for some time. Similarly, if you come down to breast, so if there is a breast lump, many patients just come in with the understanding that a surgery will take care of it. No, breast cancer treatment is a marathon. You have to be ready to run a marathon. So that is why there is this mantra, early diagnosis saves lives.
Right.
Because if we are able to catch the cancer early, where a curative approach is possible, one should just not be afraid, get to the right doctor, right center, and take care of whatever they have found very, very quickly.
So unfortunately, not all cancers will give you symptoms, and hence we need a heightened sense of screening for certain cancers which will not have symptoms. For example, ovarian cancer, one of the most common cancers in India and one of the commonest cancers in female, will come with very, very non-specific symptoms of bloating, tiredness, abdominal discomfort, change in your bowel movement, symptoms that we would largely attribute to a lot of what we eat and indigestion. And 70% of ovarian cancers even now are often diagnosed at stage 3. Looking at statistics, if you are diagnosed as a stage 1 ovarian cancer, your 5-year survival risk is more than 90%. If you're diagnosed with a stage 3 ovarian cancer, your 5-year survival is less than 50%. So, and hence understanding your genetic predisposition of what we mentioned about nature versus nurture.
Right.
If you have a strong family history of anybody developing ovarian cancer or breast cancer in your family, or you have a personal history of breast cancer in the past, or if you have nurture-based predispositions like exposure to significant amount of ultra-processed food, being obese, having a very, very sedentary lifestyle, you would want to screen yourself more often.
Well, thank you for explaining it in such a relatable way. And it's time for a short break, but our special feature, I.O., a public awareness initiative by MSD Pharmaceuticals, continues on the other side. We'll be right back. Speaking of, relatability, you've all talked about treatment modalities. I've heard surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and a coordinated approach all come up in this conversation. But I'd love for all of you to address how these modalities differ in terms of treatment plans. I think that's of great use to the layman and for their understanding. And I'll start with you, Dr. Boman.
So it is like, there are, as you rightly said, surgery and radiation. These are what we call as local forms of treatment.
All right.
And we started our practice few years back. It was only surgery, there was only radiation, and there was hormonal therapy. Things have moved far beyond, and of course chemotherapy was there. So things have far moved beyond that. When we had started, there were 3 or 4 drugs of chemotherapy. In chemotherapy, which is a systemic form of treatment, it is to treat the disease which has gone beyond its confinement.
All right.
It is a systemic form of therapy. So chemotherapy, hormonal therapy are systemic forms of therapy, whereas surgery and radiation are local forms of therapy. As told to you, that breast cancer, when we treat it surgically, it's a local treatment. You just remove the part of the breast. To enhance the local treatment, you give radiation. Systemically, you give so that the microscopic disease which is spread beyond its confinement, to treat that, we give chemotherapy. Hormonal therapy is a long-term treatment. So we give hormonal therapy as a maintenance form of a treatment to keep the disease under bay. There is now further advances which have taken place in this field. In the field of oncology, we have immunotherapy, one of the latest kit in our block. Immunotherapy, what I have seen, has changed the outcome of many diseases. So immunotherapy has changed the whole concept of many diseases. The natural biology of the disease has changed. It's a systemic form of treatment. That's why it can control the rebound of some cancer cells which come, your immunotherapy, your immune system will function against them and kill those cells.
Right.
So immunotherapy, and now of course there is the CAR T cells and so many other new recent advances which have come. Certain vaccines are also going to come. So things are moving so much ahead that sometimes I feel that cancer has now become something like a chronic disease. We can treat them and they can live with how they live with diabetes or any other disease. Just go on taking a shot of immunotherapy once in 3 weeks and they are alive for so many years together.
Well, that's very heartening to hear. And beyond what we've heard already, what more would you like to add, Dr. Sewanti?
So there's much promise, truly much promise for newer drug development, for newer application, for us to live longer, for our patients to live longer. Having said that, I feel for this to really translate into benefit for Indian cancer patients, we have to walk very far now.
There's often a guilt of cancer diagnosis where one who has a small breast lump or has a small neck lump or has a oral small ulcer, one is extremely uncomfortable sharing that you are having this symptom. Deep down, most of our patients often tell us that I knew this was there for a bit.
Sure.
But the guilt of being diagnosed with cancer is so huge that one tends to what we call as the ostrich phenomena, get camouflaged into giving your mind various excuses of what it could be or it should be rather than meeting a physician and getting it diagnosed. If we can take away that stigma of cancer diagnosis and the guilt of being diagnosed with cancer would be a great message for a patient, because then we'll see a significant proportion of these people being diagnosed early, being treated early, and hence living an absolutely normal life after they finish their therapy. And the idea is of what you can cure should be cured, what you cannot cure should be very well controlled. And the incurable cancers have largely become more of a chronic health problem rather than acute life-threatening illness.
What our panelists said is absolutely true. But let us go to the rural areas.
Right.
Let us see what is happening in rural areas. That is the time when we can pass on this message to them that cancer is treatable, talk to them,
Right.
These are the things which are also so very important and basics that
we have
most
to bridge
of the time.
that urban-rural divide
Absolutely.
when it comes to cancer care.
So we all are sitting here and we can talk a lot of things, but
Right.
How many things, screenings are not happening there in rural areas.
Sure.
So of course things have moved a lot, what I used to see in 30 years back and now. But still, I think so there are a lot of gaps between these things.
Certainly look forward to that. And by way of closing comments, I pose this question to all of my panelists in our quest to separate fact from fiction. When it comes to cancer and cancer care, what's the parting message that you'd perhaps like to leave behind with our viewers? And I'll start with you, Dr. Vashishth.
So a very important message is the new cancer doctors that have cropped up on Facebook and Instagram who suggest certain lifestyle and diet changes which may not truly be scientific. Oh. We have the new entire gamut of people who suggest completely stopping sugar is going to prevent cancer from coming in. We have people who suggest get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, have a neem a day, and your cancer is going to vanish. I wish that was true. And we all hope that there is one certain dietary change which can stop us from getting cancer. I think it's more of a lifestyle that we need to adapt to, a healthier lifestyle that my panelists have so strongly suggested. Sitting at home, sitting and looking for cancer solutions on Facebook and Instagram is not your solution. Trying to understand your genetic risk is, trying to screen yourself for it is, and also trying to ensure that you adapt a certain lifestyle of avoiding ultra-processed foods, including good amount of whole grains in your diet, having significant amount of green leafy vegetables, significant amount of fruits, which is going to actually push you towards better health. Not only just cancer-free health, but also from a lot of other chronic lifestyle diseases is the mantra that I would want our young ones to follow rather than look for simpler solutions on the net.
And my last message is for those who are diagnosed, those who are battling, those who have survived, those who have thrived cancer. My last message is for them. Hats off to them. Without their energy, without their contribution, we would not be able to move the field forward. It is about those patients who accept newer treatments. It is about those patients who accept experimental treatments that helps move the field forward. So my salute to those patients, and with folded hands, my requests to all and sundry to really not hide cancer, seek help at the earliest, to diagnose it early, and to treat it at the best and the earliest time to improve outcomes and to give them longer lives.
you know, things are different in the city and things are different in the rural areas. We have to accept that. In city, you do Googling, you do see things, and you come to your own conclusions.
Right.
To those people, I would tell them, just think that cancer is not one disease. Cancer is a group of diseases. There are so many different stages, there are so many different types of cancer, so there cannot be one treatment for all cancers, there cannot be one preventive measure for that type of a cancer. So every patient that comes to us is a unique patient. So even for a breast cancer patient, if you see, there will be early stage, there will be advanced stage, there will be so many different treatment options.
Sure.
So don't compare yourself, unfortunately, if you are diagnosed with cancer, with another person.
Right.
So you should not be comparing yourself with any other person. You are a unique person and you are a unique patient for us. For rural areas, it's education and education. Start educating the people. There are screening programs. The government has started screening programs. So you should take part in them.
We owe it to ourselves.
And that is how we'll move forward.
Well, Dr. Boman, Dr. Sewanti and Dr. Vashishth, I have to thank you for sharing such a rich range of perspectives from your personal as well as your professional journey alike. We salute what you do on an everyday basis to improve cancer outcomes across the country. With that, I wish you all the continued success. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us in studio. With that, our special feature, I.O., a public awareness initiative by MSD Pharmaceuticals, comes to a close. Given all the lack of information often associated with cancer, it's all the more critical we educate ourselves and stay informed in order to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And conversations like this, to my mind, certainly make for a critical first step. We trust you found the insights shared of value. Thanks for watching.